Hi guys, and welcome to the first lap guide video in support of the new MRC Ginetta Academy. This lap guide will be for round 1 at Monza. To start the video, I'll just be going through the basic setup that I've created. Then I'll be going through a more in-depth lap guide before finally showing several different views of the lap so everyone can try and appreciate what's going on with the vehicle. Okay, first of all, the basic vehicle setup. You can use the tyre pressures as a guide. You may need to adjust these as you start driving around. Target pressure of 26.5 to 27. I usually try and hover around the 27 psi range, as I feel that gives a bit better response from the vehicle. The overall setup was created based on the standard aggressive setup. I just changed it and tweaked it to make it slightly more friendly when it slides. It lets go at a slightly slower rate, and so it's a bit more controllable, as well as all round being a bit easier to handle curbs, etc. around the track. So that's the tyres. Moving on to electronics, basic TC2, ABS 3. You can click TC up to 3 and ABS up to 4 if you so wish you're struggling with the vehicle. But overall, this is a pretty good compromise of not causing the electronics to get too much in the way of the vehicle handling, but still providing a bit of a safety net. Fuel strategy, just for the practice, I was using 20 litres, front and rear brakes 1. Mechanical grip, I believe the only thing I did was lower the rear wheel rate slightly and up the preload on the differential. This just meant as you get on the throttle, the car's a bit more capable of getting the weight over the rear end, which stops it from feeling slightly so loose, especially when you're on the throttle. The preload just helps the car have a little bit more resistance to turning, so it'll feel a little bit more stable. I think I may have changed the steer ratio, but that's personal preference. Brake bias as well, again slightly personal preference, but I'd start with where I've got it. On the dampers, I believe the only thing I changed was the rear bump, just reducing that a little bit. Same as the rear springs, just allows the weight to get over the rear end, which stops the car from sliding quite so easily. On the aero side of thing, put the brake ducts to 2 front, 1 rear. It seems to be more than enough for Monza because of the big long straights. You don't need the brakes to get too cold. I increased the ride height as well. It just allows it to be a little bit more friendly over the curbs. As well as enabling with the rear end being a little bit softer. It just means the car is able to roll slightly more, which means as the car does lose grip, it's a bit more steady and progressive, which means it should be a bit more friendly as everyone's trying to push it. If you do find the car's a bit too difficult to handle, you can try raising the front a little. If you find the car's a little bit too understeery and you'd like a bit more pointiness from it, you can reduce the front ride height. Okay, now we have the more in-depth lap guide, which I will go through the individual sections, trying to point out relevant brake markers, as well as giving some fundamental tips of how to help the vehicle behaviour as we're going through the individual sections. Starting the lap, obviously coming across the start and finish straight. We're going to be looking to brake at the 150 meter board. As you get more confident, you may be able to brake just after it. Second board on your left, just after the hedgerow on the left starts. As you can see, I brake just after the 150, but use the 150 as your initial point. Smooth gear changes, nice and consistent between the gears to help the car stay stable. All the way down into first. Easing off the brake as you're turning in, trying to hit the inside curb. Make sure you're about midway over the track before you turn into the left. Again, trying to get over the curb. As you're on the curb, start feeding in the throttle and bringing the car out to the exit curb. By this point, you can be hard on the throttle, nice and easy, and the vehicle will be good from there up to Curva Grande. For Curva Grande, we're just going to stay on the right hand side to middle of the track. No need to go all the way over to the left, you just increase the amount of track that you're trying to use. In the GT4s, that's not needed, so I will fast forward to the second chicane. On the exit of Curva Grande, again, try not to go too far over to the left of the track, staying on the right. Again here, we're looking for the 150 meter board. You can brake just after it once you're confident, but start by using the 150. Again, same as the first time, smoothly going down the gears to keep the car stable. This time we're only going to go down to second. If we go to first, the car becomes a bit too loose. Again, trying to clip the curb off the throttle through the left. Can squeeze the throttle to make your way into the second curb slightly before we come off the throttle over the curb and then back on the throttle again towards the exit. I get a little bit of tail happiness there. It's because I'm on the throttle hard as I'm going over the curb for the second right. If you want to do that, just be careful, the car might step out slightly. If you're trying to stop the car from stepping out at all, you will just need to stay off the throttle slightly longer as you go over the curb for the second corner of the chicane, the right-hander. Okay, coming into Lesmo 1, tricky corner on the track, quite technical. Braking points difficult to spot. I use either the last small grandstand on the right, you can just see in grey, or there is a tree on the left that is effectively in line with the shadow of the tree across the track in this view. This is the same time of day we'll be using for the race, so the shadow will be there, but generally you should not be using shadows due to the fact that they're changing all the time. So either the small grandstand on the right that I said, or the lastmost tree on the left that is now in line with the windscreen wiper. Difficult to spot when you're coming at it. Difficult corner overall. We'll be careful to only do a small braking phase, and we don't want to request full brake pressure. If we do that, we're going to shift too much weight to the front of the car too quickly. It's only a small braking phase, so if we did that whilst then starting to try and turn in, we'd get a lot of instabilities and a lot of oversteer on entry. So we're just going to breathe on the brake pedal, decent amount of pressure, 80% or so, just to scrub off the speed, get the car balanced, weight on the front end, ready to take in the corner. So we should see this here. Yep, 80-90% brake pressure. I've already started turning in when... So just fast forward the video. I've already started turning in when I'm reaching for the brake pedal, which is why we don't want to request all brakes. If I put all brakes on there, see even there I'm having to bring open the steering wheel because the weight shifted to the front. So it's important we don't ask too much of the brakes here. We can clip the curb slightly, that's fine. The acceleration point, if I just rewind quickly, the acceleration point on the exit of the corner is as we see the orange of the barrier. After we've turned the car in, got it towards the apex with the curb, ridden the curb, starting to think about the throttle. We should be able to be on the throttle as we see that orange curb on the inside. Smoothly bring the throttle on, and then running wide on exit up to the curb on the outside. You can run comfortably over that with your left tyres onto the AstroTurf on the left. Plenty of grip there in the dry, not so much in the wet, but we'll be focusing on the dry lines for this race. Okay, running into Lesmo 2, we're looking for the brake marker just between the white line that runs across the track in front of the vehicle now and the 50 board. Same as the entry into Lesmo 1, we're not looking to request full brake pressure because near enough as soon as we get on the brakes, we're going to start looking to turn the vehicle into the corner. So we don't want to brake too hard, too quickly, It's going to throw too much weight on the front end, and then we'll have a loose rear end on entry into the corner, which is definitely not what we want here, because we want to be able to get onto the throttle nice and early, big run up the following straight. So I suggest trying to just miss the curb on the right hand side. In the GT4s you can clip the curb. Some vehicles will take it better than others. Some drivers will have driving styles that allow them to run curbs more heavily. On this I prefer to just miss the curb. Allows us, with the camber on in the middle of the corner, allows us to start picking up the throttle earlier. Just as we get through the curb, past the curb, we're getting on the throttle nice and quickly without being too sharp. Again, running the car, left-hand tyres out towards the AstroTurf, which you'd avoid in the wet, but in the dry this is fine. Okay, driving up to Ascari, we're looking to brake at the board that goes over the top of the track. Hard on the brakes, full brake pressure, decelerate as quickly as we can. Smoothly down the gears to keep the car stable. On this lap, and to get the most from a vehicle, I'd suggest trying to move your left-hand tyres just over the sleeping policeman. We're staying in third gear to keep the rear end of the vehicle stable as we turn in. Driving just over the sleeping policeman. What I tend to do as I'm driving over them is go to quarter, half throttle. This just stops all the weight being on the front end of the vehicle, which means as we go over the sleeping policeman, we're not going to have the rear end too loose stepping out. So we've got a nice stable platform with quarter to half throttle over the sleeping policeman. Keeps the vehicle nice and steady, allows us to ride over them. If you're not feeling comfortable riding over the sleeping policeman, you can drive to the right of them, although try and get as close as you can to them at least. I do suggest practicing going over the sleeping policeman because it is the quicker way. It does open up the corner a lot more. Briefly onto full throttle before we're moving into the right. Be careful on the right not to go into the gully of the curb, else you'll find it pull the car in and cause big issues before you're trying to turn left. What you will need to do is just breathe off the throttle again as you're in the middle of the right-hander here, just to get the weight back down onto the front tyres, allow you to turn around the corner, else you'll find yourself understeering wide, and then you won't be able to get into the left, which is the most important corner of this complex for the following straight. So coming on from half throttle to full throttle, ready for the left again. Again, we're going to try and aim to put our left-hand tyres over the sleeping policeman. If you're not feeling confident with this, you can run to the right of the sleeping policeman. The way I've set the vehicle up, it should be fairly friendly as long as you're just taking the left-hand tyres over the sleeping policeman. The vehicle should be fairly friendly over it. We are, however, going to go off from full throttle because we don't want the rear to pop over the curb, spin up in the air, land back down and cause all sort of issues. So we're just going to release the throttle to about halfway, just as we go over the curb, as the car comes back down, back onto the full throttle, aiming nice and wide, right-hand tyres over the AstroTurf. Okay, coming into the parabolic of the last corner of the track. Braking at the board on the left, 100 metre. Full brake pressure initially, before we start tailoring off as we need to turn into the corner. Try and stay fairly tight on the apex. Hug tight for the first part. We are looking for the man in orange on the exit. As you see the man in orange, you should be aiming to come through the throttle onto full throttle steadily. And this lap I've reached full throttle by the time I get past him. But as long as you're coming onto the throttle comfortably at the point you're going past him, that's fine. Then on exit, fairly simple, let yourself run wide. In the GT4s, try not to touch the curb on exit. The rumble strip will just lose you a little bit of speed and you don't need to. Nice and smooth on exit, opening up the steering, trying to scrub the speed off as least as possible with the steering wheel, and then heading back down the main straight. Okay, from here we'll just show you a the lap in a few different views, so you can see the vehicle placement.